Welcome to Epic English Stories, where we transform your English learning journey into an extraordinary adventure. I'm your host, and today we're embarking on one of the most powerful quests you'll ever take in your English mastery, learning to think directly in English. Picture this. You're in a conversation with a native speaker, and instead of frantically translating in your head, words flow naturally from your thoughts. No more mental gymnastics, no more awkward pauses, just pure, effortless communication. This isn't just a dream. It's a skill that thousands of learners have mastered. And today, you're going to discover exactly how they did it. Most people think that thinking in English is some mystical ability reserved for language geniuses. But here's the truth that will change everything. Your brain is already equipped with everything you need to make this transformation. You just need the right roadmap. In the next 20 minutes, we'll unlock the secrets that will revolutionize how you approach English learning. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear action plan that can transform your English fluency in ways you never imagined possible. Tell me in the comments, what's the biggest mental block you face when trying to speak English fluently? Let's start with a question that might surprise you. Why do some English learners sound natural and confident after just a few years, while others struggle for decades with the same basic conversations? The answer isn't about intelligence, talent, or even the amount of time spent studying. It's about one crucial skill that separates fluent speakers from eternal learners: the ability to think directly in English. When you think in English, you're not just learning a language. You're rewiring your brain for success. This mental shift creates a cascade of benefits that touch every aspect of your communication skills. The fluency revolution. Imagine your brain as a computer. Right now, when you want to speak English, your brain runs a complex program. It takes your thoughts in your native language, translates them to English, checks the grammar, searches for vocabulary, and finally outputs the speech. This process is exhausting and slow. But when you think in English, you're essentially upgrading your brain's operating system. Your thoughts originate in English, eliminating the translation step entirely. This means faster responses, more natural expressions, and conversations that flow like a river instead of stuttering like a broken machine. The transformation is immediate and profound. Instead of constructing sentences piece by piece, you'll find yourself naturally expressing complete thoughts. Your speech rhythm becomes more natural, your pauses feel more organic, and your overall communication becomes effortlessly smooth. The confidence transformation. Here's something fascinating. Confidence in language doesn't come from knowing more words or perfect grammar. It comes from the feeling that English is truly yours. When you think in English, you develop an intimate relationship with the language. You're not borrowing words from a foreign language. You're expressing yourself in a language that feels natural and authentic. This confidence shift is profound. You'll find yourself participating more actively in conversations, taking risks with new expressions, and most importantly, enjoying the process of communication instead of fearing it. The fear of making mistakes diminishes because you're no longer consciously constructing every sentence. You're simply expressing your thoughts naturally. This new confidence extends beyond just speaking. You'll feel more comfortable in professional settings, more willing to share your ideas in meetings, and more eager to engage in social conversations. The psychological barrier that once made English feel foreign begins to dissolve. The comprehension breakthrough. When your brain becomes accustomed to processing English thoughts, something magical happens with your listening skills. You stop hearing individual words and start understanding meaning directly. Conversations become clearer, movies become more enjoyable, and you'll find yourself picking up on subtle nuances that you never noticed before. This happens because your brain stops working overtime to decode every single word. Instead, it processes chunks of meaning, just like you do in your native language. The result? You understand faster, remember more, and feel more connected to what you're hearing. Your listening comprehension improves dramatically because your brain learns to predict and fill in gaps naturally. You'll start understanding accents that once seemed impossible, catching jokes that previously went over your head, and following rapid conversations without feeling lost. The creative connection. Perhaps most surprisingly, thinking in English opens up new creative pathways in your brain. Different languages structure thoughts differently, and English will give you access to new ways of expressing ideas, solving problems, and seeing the world. Many learners report that they feel like a slightly different person when they think in English, more confident, more creative, or more analytical. This isn't your imagination. It's your brain accessing new neural pathways that each language uniquely provides. This creative expansion manifests in various ways. You might find yourself approaching problems from different angles, expressing emotions with nuances you couldn't access before, or even discovering aspects of your personality that only emerge when thinking in English. The speed advantage. In our fast-paced world, the ability to think and respond quickly in English is invaluable. Whether you're in a business meeting, a social gathering, or an academic discussion, the person who can think in English has a significant advantage. Your responses become spontaneous and natural. You stop missing conversational opportunities because you're stuck translating. Instead, you become an active participant who can contribute meaningfully to any discussion. This speed advantage becomes particularly apparent in professional settings. You'll find yourself contributing more effectively to brainstorming sessions, responding more quickly to emails, and presenting ideas with greater clarity and impact. The competitive advantage in today's global marketplace is enormous. The emotional connection. When you think in English, you don't just communicate facts. You communicate emotions, personality, and nuance. This emotional connection makes your English more engaging and authentic. People respond better to you because they sense that you're truly present in the conversation, not just going through the motions of language exchange. This emotional fluency is what separates good English speakers from great ones. It's the difference between sounding robotic and sounding human, between being understood and being truly heard. When you can think and feel in English, your relationships with English speakers deepen. You're no longer just exchanging information. You're sharing experiences, emotions, and genuine connections. This emotional authenticity creates lasting bonds and opens doors to opportunities that go far beyond language learning. The cultural integration. Thinking in English also provides unprecedented access to English-speaking cultures. You begin to understand not just what people say, but how they think, what they value, and why they express themselves in certain ways. This cultural fluency is invaluable for building meaningful relationships and succeeding in international environments. You'll start appreciating humor, understanding cultural references, and navigating social situations with greater ease. This cultural integration makes you not just a speaker of English, but a participant in the global English-speaking community. The journey to thinking in English isn't just about language learning. It's about personal transformation. You're not just acquiring a skill. You're expanding your identity, opening new doors of opportunity, and connecting with people in ways that weren't possible before. Every great English speaker you admire went through this same transformation. They discovered that thinking in English wasn't just helpful. It was essential for reaching their full potential in the language. Now let's dive into the fascinating world of how language and thought interact in your brain. Understanding this connection will give you the scientific foundation you need to make your English thinking transformation both effective and permanent. The language-thought connection. Your brain is an incredibly sophisticated machine, and language plays a much more important role in your thinking than you might realize. Scientists have discovered that the language you're using doesn't just express your thoughts. It actually shapes how you think. This phenomenon, known as linguistic relativity, means that when you switch to thinking in English, you're not just changing the words in your head, you're changing the actual structure and style of your thinking. English has different patterns, rhythms, and logical structures than your native language, and these differences will influence how you process information and solve problems. Research from neuroscience shows that bilingual individuals who actively think in their second language develop enhanced cognitive flexibility. Their brains become more adaptable, better at switching between different types of thinking, and more creative in problem-solving scenarios. The translation trap. Most English learners fall into what I call the translation trap. They assume that fluent English is simply their native language thoughts translated word for word into English. But this approach creates several problems that actually prevent fluency. First, translation is slow. Your brain has to work double time, processing thoughts in one language and then converting them to another. This creates the hesitation and delay that makes conversations feel unnatural. Studies show that translation-based thinking can add 200 to 500 milliseconds to response times, which is noticeable in natural conversation. Second, translation often produces awkward English. Languages don't map perfectly onto each other. What sounds natural in your native language might sound strange or unclear in English. This is why even grammatically correct translated sentences often sound foreign to native speakers. Third, translation prevents you from developing true English intuition. When you're always translating, you never develop the ability to feel what sounds right in English. You become dependent on rules and conscious thinking instead of developing natural language instincts. The direct processing revolution. When you think directly in English, your brain creates new neural pathways specifically for English processing. These pathways become stronger and more efficient with practice, eventually becoming your brain's preferred route for English communication. This direct processing brings several advantages. Your thoughts flow more smoothly because they're not being interrupted by translation. Your vocabulary access improves because words are stored in context rather than as isolated translations. Your grammar becomes more natural because you're learning patterns rather than rules. Brain imaging studies reveal that when people think directly in their second language, the same neural networks activate as when native speakers use the language. This suggests that direct processing literally rewires your brain to function more like a native speaker's brain. The immersion effect. Research shows that the brain learns languages most effectively through immersion, but true immersion isn't just about being surrounded by English speakers. Mental immersion, thinking in English, can be just as powerful as physical immersion. When you think in English, you're creating a constant immersion environment in your own mind. You're giving your brain continuous English input and practice, even when you're alone. This mental practice is available to you 24 hours a day, making it one of the most powerful tools for language development. Studies indicate that learners who practice mental immersion for just 15 minutes daily show significant improvements in fluency within 30 days. The key is consistency rather than duration. Regular practice creates lasting neural changes. The neuroplasticity advantage. Your brain has an amazing ability called neuroplasticity, the capacity to form new neural connections throughout your life. Every time you think in English, you're strengthening these connections and making English thinking more automatic and natural. The key is consistency. Just like physical exercise builds muscle through regular repetition, mental exercise builds language pathways through consistent practice. The more you think in English, the stronger these pathways become and the more natural English thinking feels. Neuroplasticity research shows that adults can develop near-native language processing abilities through focused practice. The critical factor isn't age, it's the quality and consistency of mental practice. The contextual learning boost. When you think in English, you're not just learning words, you're learning how those words fit into contexts, emotions, and situations. This contextual learning is far more powerful than memorizing vocabulary lists because it teaches you not just what words mean, but how they feel and when to use them. This contextual understanding is what gives native speakers their intuitive grasp of the language. They don't just know that certain words are correct, they feel that they're correct. This feeling comes from years of thinking in the language, and it's something you could develop too. The emotional integration. Perhaps most importantly, thinking in English allows you to integrate emotions with the language. When you think in English, you're not just accessing vocabulary and grammar. You're accessing the emotional associations that make language truly meaningful. This emotional integration is crucial for authentic communication. When you can think and feel in English, your communication becomes more natural, more persuasive, and more engaging. People respond to you differently because they sense that you're truly present in the language not just visiting it. The cognitive benefits. Research has shown that people who think in multiple languages develop enhanced cognitive abilities. They become better at multitasking, problem solving, and creative thinking. The brain workout that comes from thinking in English doesn't just improve your English. It improves your overall mental agility. This cognitive enhancement is one of the hidden benefits of language learning that many people don't realize. By training your brain to think in English, you're not just becoming a better English speaker, you're becoming a better thinker overall. The memory consolidation process. When you think in English, you're also improving how your brain stores and retrieves English information. Thoughts processed in English are stored more efficiently and can be accessed more quickly during conversations. This creates a positive feedback loop where better storage leads to better retrieval, which leads to more confident communication. Understanding the science behind language and thought gives you a powerful advantage in your English learning journey. You're not just following random advice. You're implementing strategies based on solid research about how the brain learns and processes language. Now that you understand the why and the science, let's dive into the practical steps that will transform your brain into an English thinking machine. These aren't just theories. They're proven strategies that have helped thousands of learners make the breakthrough from translation to direct English thinking. Step 1. The environmental narration technique. Start by becoming the narrator of your own life in English. This technique is incredibly powerful because it uses your existing daily routine as a practice ground for English thinking. Begin with simple descriptions of your immediate environment. Look around you right now and describe what you see in English. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. There's a window to my right with natural light coming through. My coffee cup is half empty, and I can smell the aroma. The key is to make this continuous and detailed. Don't just say, I see a book. Say, I see a thick, red book with a worn cover lying on the wooden table. It looks like it's been read many times. Practice this during different activities throughout your day. When you're cooking, think, I'm chopping the onions into small pieces. The knife is sharp and cuts easily through the layers. When you're walking, think the sidewalk is wet from last night's rain. I can hear my footsteps echoing off the buildings. Make this practice increasingly sophisticated. Instead of just describing what you see, add sensory details, emotions, and personal reactions. The morning sunlight feels warm on my face, and it reminds me of summer vacations when I was a child. Step 2. The internal dialogue revolution. Replace your internal dialogue with English. This is where the real magic happens. Your internal dialogue is the constant stream of thoughts running through your mind throughout the day. By switching this to English, you're essentially giving your brain English practice every waking moment. Start with simple internal conversations. Instead of thinking, I'm hungry in your native language, think, I'm getting hungry. Maybe I should eat something. Instead of it's cold, think it's really cold today. I should wear a warmer jacket. As you become more comfortable, expand these internal conversations. When you're making decisions, conduct the entire decision-making process in English. Should I go to the store now or later? If I go now, I can avoid the crowds. But if I wait, I might be too tired. I think I'll go now. Include self-talk and personal commentary. I'm feeling proud of myself for completing that difficult task. It was challenging, but I didn't give up. This shows me that I can handle more than I think I can. Step 3. The emotional processing method. One of the most powerful techniques for developing English thinking is to process your emotions in English. This might sound advanced, but it's actually quite natural once you start. When you feel happy, don't just think, I'm happy. Think, I'm feeling really good today. Everything seems to be going well, and I'm grateful for this positive energy. When you're frustrated, think, I'm getting frustrated with this situation. I need to take a deep breath and think of a solution. This emotional processing in English creates deep neural pathways that connect your feelings with English expression. It's one of the fastest ways to develop authentic, natural English thinking. Extend this to complex emotions. I'm feeling anxious about tomorrow's presentation, but I also feel excited about the opportunity to share my ideas. This mixture of nervousness and anticipation is actually motivating me to prepare well. Step 4. The media immersion strategy. Transform your media consumption into English thinking practice. Instead of passively watching English content, actively engage with it mentally. When watching movies or TV shows, try to predict what characters will say next. Think along with them in English. When you hear a new expression, immediately think of how you might use it in your own life. Listen to English podcasts and audiobooks, but don't just listen. Participate mentally. Agree, disagree, ask questions, and form opinions all in English. This active engagement trains your brain to think critically and creatively in English. After consuming English media, reflect on it in English. That documentary about climate change was really eye-opening. I never realized how much individual actions could make a difference. I should think about ways I can reduce my carbon footprint. Step 5. The future planning technique. Use English to plan your future activities. This is particularly powerful because it combines English thinking with goal setting and visualization. Instead of planning your day in your native language, do it in English. Tomorrow I need to finish my presentation. I'll start by reviewing my notes, then I'll work on the conclusion. If I have time, I'll practice it out loud. Plan your weekend, your vacation, your career goals, all in English. This technique is incredibly effective because it makes English thinking relevant to your real life and future aspirations. Include both short-term and long-term planning. Next week, I want to have coffee with my friend Sarah. We haven't caught up in months, and I'm curious to hear about her new job. In 5 years, I hope to be working in an international company where I can use my English skills every day. Step 6. The problem-solving protocol. When you encounter problems or challenges, solve them in English. This advanced technique helps you develop complex thinking skills in English. Whether it's a work problem, a relationship issue, or a practical challenge, walk through your problem-solving process in English. The problem is that I don't have enough time to finish everything today. Let me think about my options. I could prioritize the most important tasks, or I could ask for help, or I could extend my deadline. What would be the best approach? Include the entire analytical process: problem identification, option generation, evaluation, and decision-making. This comprehensive approach develops sophisticated English thinking skills. Step 7. The reflection and analysis method. End each day by reflecting on your experiences in English. This consolidates your learning and helps you process your day's experiences through an English thinking lens. Think about what went well, what challenges you faced, what you learned, and what you want to improve tomorrow. Conduct this entire reflection process in English, and you'll find that your English thinking becomes more sophisticated and nuanced over time. The progressive challenge system. Start with whichever step feels most comfortable for you, but aim to incorporate all 7 techniques into your daily routine over time. Begin with 5 to 10 minutes of conscious English thinking per day, then gradually increase as it becomes more natural. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Every minute you spend thinking in English is building the neural pathways that will eventually make English thinking automatic and effortless. Even with the best techniques and strongest motivation, every English learner faces mental barriers on their journey to thinking in English. These challenges are completely normal and expected. In fact, overcoming them is part of what makes you a stronger, more resilient learner. Let's address these barriers head-on and give you the tools to push through them. The perfectionism paralysis. One of the biggest obstacles learners face is the fear of making mistakes while thinking in English. You might worry that your English thoughts aren't grammatically perfect or that you're using words incorrectly. This perfectionism can actually prevent you from practicing at all. Here's a liberating truth. Your English thoughts don't need to be perfect. Even native speakers make grammatical errors in their internal dialogue. The goal isn't perfection, it's communication and progress. When you catch yourself hesitating because you're not sure if your English thought is correct, push through anyway. Think of it as a rough draft of a thought. You can always refine it later, but the important thing is to keep the English thinking flowing. Create a mistake-friendly environment in your mind. Tell yourself that mistakes are data, not failures. Every mistake teaches you something about English and brings you closer to natural fluency. The vocabulary limitation frustration. Another common barrier is feeling like you don't have enough vocabulary to express complex thoughts in English. This can lead to oversimplified thinking or reverting to your native language when thoughts become complicated. The solution is to embrace what I call vocabulary stretching. When you don't know a specific English word, try to express the concept using the English words you do know. This isn't a limitation, it's a powerful learning opportunity. For example, if you don't know the word nostalgic, you might think, I'm feeling sad and happy at the same time when I remember my childhood. This circumlocution actually helps you understand the concept more deeply than just memorizing a definition. Keep a mental note of concepts you struggle to express and research them later. This approach ensures that new vocabulary is learned in context and with emotional connection, making it more likely to stick. The energy drain dilemma. Many learners find that thinking in English is initially exhausting. This mental fatigue can be discouraging and make it tempting to give up. This tiredness is completely normal. Your brain is working hard to build new neural pathways. Think of this mental fatigue as similar to physical exercise. When you first start working out, you get tired quickly. But as you build strength and endurance, the same exercises become easier and less draining. The same principle applies to mental exercise. Start with short sessions of English thinking. Even 5 minutes can be beneficial. Gradually increase the duration as your mental stamina improves. Some days you'll feel more energetic than others, and that's okay. The key is consistency, not intensity. The cultural thinking gap. Sometimes you'll encounter thoughts or concepts that seem to express themselves more naturally in your native language. This cultural thinking gap can make you feel like English isn't adequate for expressing your complete thoughts. This challenge is actually an opportunity to expand your thinking. Different languages do offer different ways of conceptualizing the world, and learning to think in English will give you access to new ways of understanding and expressing ideas. When you encounter a culturally specific concept, try to explore how English speakers might think about the same idea. This cultural bridge building is part of what makes language learning so enriching. The consistency challenge. Perhaps the biggest barrier of all is maintaining consistency in your English thinking practice. Life gets busy, motivation fluctuates, and it's easy to slip back into native language thinking patterns. Build English thinking into activities you already do every day. Connect it to existing habits like drinking your morning coffee, commuting to work, or getting ready for bed. This habit stacking makes consistency much easier to maintain. Create environmental cues that remind you to think in English. You might put a small note on your mirror, set phone reminders, or use English thinking apps that send you practice prompts throughout the day. The social pressure barrier. Some learners worry about what others might think if they knew they were thinking in English. This social pressure can create anxiety and make English thinking feel artificial or pretentious. Remember that thinking in English is a private activity. Nobody else needs to know about your internal language practice. This is your personal journey, and you have every right to pursue it without judgment from others. In fact, many successful bilinguals think in different languages for different purposes. There's nothing unusual or artificial about this. It's a natural part of being multilingual. The plateau phenomenon. After some initial progress, you might feel like your English thinking isn't improving anymore. This plateau can be frustrating and make you question whether your efforts are worthwhile. Plateaus are a normal part of any learning process. They often occur just before major breakthroughs. During these periods, your brain is consolidating what you've learned and preparing for the next level of development. Instead of seeing plateaus as failures, view them as opportunities to deepen your practice. Focus on quality over quantity and experiment with new techniques or more challenging types of English thinking. The motivation maintenance challenge. Finally, maintaining motivation over the long term can be challenging, especially when progress feels slow or when you're not seeing immediate results in your speaking ability. Connect your English thinking practice to your larger goals and dreams. Remind yourself regularly why you want to be fluent in English. Visualize the conversations you'll have, the opportunities you'll access, and the confidence you'll feel. Celebrate small victories along the way. Notice when English thinking feels more natural, when you dream in English, or when you catch yourself automatically thinking in English without conscious effort. Creating lasting change in your English thinking requires more than just knowing the techniques. It requires building sustainable habits that will carry you through the inevitable ups and downs of language learning. Let's explore how to create a practice system that not only works, but becomes an enjoyable and integral part of your daily life. The Habit Architecture Framework. Building any new habit requires what I call habit architecture, creating the right environment and conditions for success. For English thinking, this means designing your daily life to naturally encourage and support English mental practice. Start by identifying your transition moments, times when you naturally shift from one activity to another. These are perfect opportunities to insert English thinking practice. For example, the moment you wake up, when you're waiting for your coffee to brew, during your commute, or right before you fall asleep. These transition moments are powerful because they're already part of your routine. You're not trying to create entirely new time blocks for practice. You're simply adding English thinking to existing moments in your day. The micro-habit revolution. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is trying to practice for too long when they're starting out. This leads to burnout and inconsistency. Instead, embrace the power of micro-habits, incredibly small actions that are almost impossible to fail at. Start with just 30 seconds of English thinking per day. This might sound insignificant, but it's the foundation for building a much larger habit. Once 30 seconds becomes automatic and effortless, expand to 1 minute, then 2 minutes, and so on. The key is to make your initial commitment so small that you can't talk yourself out of it. Even on your worst days, you can manage 30 seconds of English thinking. This consistency is far more valuable than sporadic hour-long sessions. The context stacking strategy. Connect your English thinking practice to activities you already do consistently. This is called context stacking, and it's one of the most effective ways to build new habits. For example, if you drink coffee every morning, make that your English thinking time. Every time you take a sip, think one English thought. If you brush your teeth twice a day, use that time for English thinking practice. If you take a shower every day, make it your English narration time. This approach leverages existing habits to build new ones, making the process feel natural and sustainable. The progressive challenge system. As your English thinking becomes more natural, you need to continually challenge yourself to prevent stagnation. Create a progressive system that gradually increases the complexity and duration of your practice. Week 1 to 2. Simple present tense descriptions of your immediate environment. Week 3 to 4. Add emotional processing and personal reactions. Week 5 to 6. Include future planning and goal setting. Week 7 to 8. Add problem solving and decision making. Week 9 to 10. Include abstract thinking and philosophical reflection. This progressive system ensures that you're always growing and never get bored with your practice. The flexibility principle. While consistency is important, rigidity can kill motivation. Build flexibility into your practice system so that it can adapt to your changing schedule and energy levels. Create different versions of your practice for different situations. Have a 5-minute version for busy days, a 15-minute version for normal days, and a 30-minute version for days when you're feeling particularly motivated. This flexibility prevents the all-or-nothing thinking that often derails habit formation. Some practice is always better than no practice, and your habit system should reflect this reality. The accountability and tracking system. What gets measured gets managed. Create a simple system for tracking your English thinking practice without making it so complicated that tracking becomes a burden. Use a simple calendar to mark days when you practice. Seeing a chain of successful days is motivating and helps you maintain momentum. When you break the chain, simply start again the next day without guilt or self-criticism. Consider finding an accountability partner, someone who's also working on English thinking or another language goal. Regular check-ins can provide motivation and support during challenging periods. The environment design strategy. Your physical environment can either support or hinder your English thinking practice. Design your environment to make English thinking more likely in native language, thinking less automatic. Change your phone's language settings to English. Set English language wallpapers with inspirational quotes. Post small English reminders in places where you'll see them regularly. These environmental cues serve as gentle reminders to engage in English thinking. The reward integration method. Make English thinking practice inherently rewarding by connecting it to activities you already enjoy. This positive association makes the habit more sustainable and enjoyable. If you love listening to music, use English language songs as rewards for completing your thinking practice. If you enjoy certain foods, save them for after your English thinking sessions. This classical conditioning helps your brain associate English thinking with positive experiences. The community connection. While English thinking is largely an internal practice, connecting with a community of learners can provide motivation and support. Join online forums, language exchange apps, or local English practice groups. Share your progress, challenges, and victories with others who understand your journey. This community support can be invaluable during difficult periods and can provide inspiration when motivation is low. The long-term vision integration. Connect your daily English thinking practice to your long-term vision for your English fluency. Regularly remind yourself of why this practice matters and how it fits into your larger goals. Visualize yourself 6 months or a year from now, thinking effortlessly in English. Imagine the conversations you'll have, the opportunities you'll access, and the confidence you'll feel. This long-term vision provides the motivation to maintain your practice even when immediate results aren't visible. The adaptation and evolution mindset. Finally, remember that your practice system should evolve as you do. What works for you as a beginner might not work as you become more advanced. Be willing to adapt and refine your approach based on what you learn about yourself and your learning style. The goal is not to find the perfect system immediately, but to create a system that works for you right now and can evolve as you grow. As we reach the end of this transformative journey, let's reflect on the profound lesson that extends far beyond language learning. The power to reshape your mind lies entirely within your control. Learning to think in English isn't just about mastering a language. It's about discovering your incredible capacity for mental transformation. Every time you choose to think in English instead of defaulting to your native language, you're exercising one of the most powerful human abilities, the conscious direction of your thoughts. This lesson applies to every area of your life. Just as you could train your brain to think in English, you can train it to think more positively, more creatively, more strategically, or more compassionately. The techniques you've learned today, consistent practice, progressive challenge, environmental design, and habit stacking, are universal tools for personal growth. The journey to English fluency teaches us that change is possible, but requires patience, persistence, and self-compassion. You've learned that mistakes aren't failures, but stepping stones to mastery. You've discovered that small, consistent actions create remarkable transformations over time. Most importantly, you've learned that you don't need to wait for perfect conditions to begin. You can start right now, in this moment, with whatever English knowledge you currently possess. Your future fluent self is built one English thought at a time, one moment of practice at a time. The confidence you build through English thinking will overflow into other areas of your life. You'll approach challenges with greater resilience, pursue opportunities with more courage, and connect with others with increased authenticity. Remember this: every expert was once a beginner. Every fluent speaker once struggled with their first English thoughts, and every success story started with a single moment of decision, the decision to begin. Your English thinking journey is more than language learning. It's a journey of self-discovery, personal growth, and unlimited potential. Your English thinking transformation starts right now, at this very moment. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Begin today. Choose one technique from this episode and commit to practicing it for just 2 minutes today. Whether it's describing your surroundings, planning your evening, or processing how this episode made you feel, do it in English. If this episode inspired you to take action, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which technique you're going to try first. Your comment might inspire another learner to take their first brave step. Subscribe to Epic English Stories for more transformative content that will accelerate your English journey. Remember, every great English speaker started exactly where you are now. Your fluent future is waiting. Let's make it happen together.